Hey everyone. Jeff, who gets a little ad spot before every Doctor Who episode as a result of his higher pledge point on Patreon, has chosen to use this week's ad spot to send a message. Hey gang, Jeff here from the War for the Tower. By now I'm sure you're sick and tired of corporations and public officials paying lip service to the problem of entrenched police violence and white supremacy. There isn't much one podcast can do to fix that, but as a supporter of the Unspoiled Network, I have a way of supporting some really smart and committed people as they use pop culture and literature to talk about the issues that matter most. Sure, most of what we do here is for fun, but you know there's more to it than that. The more you support creative endeavors like the Unspoiled Network, the more happiness and truth you help bring into the world. One really good reason for supporting the network is the new Mistborn series for $5 and up patrons. Those books have never been as relevant as they are right now in the midst of this current slow-moving apocalypse. Join me and my crew in supporting a network that's doing what they can to make the world a little bit more livable. You'll be glad you did. Thank you, Jeff, for throwing us some support. And also, I want to take a moment to encourage everybody to donate to the Black Lives Matter movement. And if you go on Twitter, there are countless leaders in the Black community sharing links for funds for bailouts. And I really encourage you all to donate to those if you can. And if not, there is a link to a video on our Facebook page, which you can watch in order to generate ad revenue without actually having to donate any of your own money in case you are not in a place to do that right now. So again, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/unspoiledpod, and find the link to that video, or donate to Black Lives Matter and hit up Twitter. There are lots of links. I've shared some. Thanks everybody for your support. Black Lives Matter.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 6, Episode 5, The Rebel Flesh. In this episode, there are these weird, sentient people made of liquid that knows them. This is a really weird one, y'all. I liked it, but this is a weird one. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Jamie.
All right. I don't even know where to start with this weird episode, man. This whole thing with but we're alive and we're human, it feels like almost Westworldy. Mm-hmm. You know, in that we're made out of the same parts and we can feel but there can't be two of the same person. And I don't know how to reconcile that. But at the same time, I believe I was just saying on another show how much I would love to have a copy of myself to do the work that I can't do alone. So this is appealing in its way, except that assumes that the other one wants to just be my servant, which is probably not, based on my own personality, what I would want. So
right, because it's not, if it's like these people, they are actual replications of the actual person. So they have the same memories, the same feelings, the same personality until they're treated like other, and then they fight back, which is exactly the way that the actual person would probably react if they were in the same circumstance. So you can't even say it's just like me, except it wants to kill me. It's well, no, you're trying to kill them.
Right. Yep.
And they know they're gangers, they're doppelgangers. They know that. They know they were made from this weird alien sentient flesh milk. But
Gross.
they also...
I could have done without that. Flesh milk are two words that I don't want next to each other ever again in our conversations. Jesus.
Sorry. You made me lose my train of thought.
I didn't. That's your fault, ma'am.
You did it. Anyway, they know they're not the actual person, but they also know that they share all the same memories. To them, it's not a copy of just like downloaded information.
Right.
They feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a tricky, and now that at the end, where you get one of the doctor, then you're like, well, okay. So is it the doctor?
Mm-hmm.
Does he have the same capabilities as a doctor?
That's my main question. Like, can he regenerate?
Can he? I don't know.
Because that feels like
would,
it's a little bit unfair.
That would solve the I'm the only one left conundrum of the Time Lords.
True. I mean, kind of? How, like...
Well,
what?
you could have 11 and then kill him and he becomes the next version. But would it be the same next version? Or would he just regenerate into whatever?
This conversation sounds like Mad Libs. Like, there is, like, if you heard this out of context, there is no reason to have any fucking understanding of what we're talking about.
Well, we're talking absolute nonsense.
Good God. All right, so let's start at the beginning, where we are with some humans who are working. They are private contractors for the military.
Yes.
Is this what we find out later?
And when we meet these three at the beginning, only one of them is actually the human.
Oh, right. Yes, that's true. And the others are the, what do they call them?
Gangers.
Gangers, right. Yeah. That moment where he falls in and they get just so mildly irritated was so well done. Because I'm sitting there like, oh my God, he fell in acid. And they're like, oh, great. Thanks, John. This bitch
Jimmy
is trying to act like she didn't push him. We saw you, we watched it happen. You are lying.
Well, she like nudged him, but I don't think her intention was for him to fall in.
Rewatch that moment.
Okay.
She gave him a knock that it is no surprise to me at all that he fell in. And the fact that she then tried to be like, I barely touched you. I was like, oh, no, you did not. I got very angry on his behalf. And he seems real salty about this whole thing. So I'm curious about where he's going to wind up standing, because this is a two-parter, in the end, because he seems to feel like the fact that they're using these things, not for their sake, not like as a, sort of a civil rights issue, but more because it's like fostering this feeling of disposability for their employees. He really does not like this at all. Which I
sympathize with. The same one who fell in, or the one who was like...
The one who fell in.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's says something to them about, workman's comp, and he's not joking. He's acting like he's joking, but that's that thing that people do when they're really irritated about a thing, and they have to just sort of like air their grievance in a way that they know other people won't find too threatening to talk about it with them. But he's pissed. You can see.
Is the one that fell in, is that the one who has the kid?
No.
Okay.
No, two different dudes. The one who has the kid is older.
I just couldn't remember which one was which. Is he the one who was sneezing?
No. Also a different one.
Okay. All right. I think I know which one it is then.
So yeah, just they're mining some kind of acid. Is basically the thing.
Yeah,
I don't feel like the acid plays much of a role in the story, other than like adding an aspect of danger to things later, right?
Yeah, they're like shipping the acid off of the island to the mainland for whatever reason. And you're right. It really only serves a purpose of it could burn people. Mm-hmm. And the noted doctor losing his shoes.
Right.
By stepping in the acid.
Which is hilarious. Honestly, him walking around barefoot, I don't know why, but that was super funny to me. I just like him being at a disadvantage. We all know this.
Yeah.
I feel so bad too. Like, once you know that these things feel just like regular people, how awful is it that they just get routinely killed?
Well, since this is a two-parter, do you think that that's something that's going to be addressed in the next episode?
I would have to think so. Like, there's got to be some trauma there. And I really wonder too, like, if they die, what happens? Like, is the flesh that was used to make them, does it also die, or is there some supernatural thing where it sort of like rejoins with the rest? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends. Like, if they get dissolved into acid, like the guy at the beginning, there really wouldn't be much left to reincorporate to like the, base vat. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like they just keep, like, when they lose one, they make a new one of that person. And
so
they explain,
if they, like, die, like, just getting hit on the head and go down, do they pick him up and toss him back into the flesh thing?
I don't know. I don't know. We didn't see anything like that, so it's hard to say.
I'm very curious. I just,
And then, like, is there a memory of how many of them... Like, if it then gets reincorporated into the, like, base, like a Cylon. Spoilers for Battlestar Galactica, guys. When they die, then their consciousness downloads into a new body. They remember dying. They remember everything they went through. They don't lose that memory and just become a new robot. Mm-hmm. They have all of that history in their heads. They know everything that happened to them. They just have downloaded into a new body.
Right.
So is it like that?
Is it?
It's hard to say right now.
She said coyly.
Makes me want to watch Battlestar Galactica again, and I just did a couple months ago.
I just don't... I feel like... I have sympathy for these things, but it's just such a weird concept because it absolutely would feel like somebody else was stealing your life and trying to behave as if they were just as entitled to it as you.
Yes, and that's how the humans do feel.
Yeah. And I just don't think that I would react to it particularly well either. You know, like, I feel like there's this sort of tone to the way that this is done that's like, can you see that these human beings are, so narrow-minded about the whole thing? And I'm like, there's somebody else walking around with my face and body and memories being me.
Yeah.
That I have no control over, but am going to be associated with, that people will think that is me.
Yeah.
And who allegedly is making the same decisions that I would likely make in that situation. And I would, that's just a really, that's not cool. I'm not wanting somebody to just be able to step out wearing my body, basically.
Yeah.
But that's what they've got, and they didn't exactly choose that either. So, I don't know what to say. That's my brilliant analysis. Thanks for coming.
Your thesis there just trailed off at the end.
Yeah, it was just basically like, it's super weird. You know. But yeah, I don't know. It was like, I kept feeling like I was supposed to be having one reaction, and I wasn't having the reaction that I felt like I was supposed to be having. And I was uncomfortable with that a little.
What reaction do you think you were supposed to be having?
I think I was supposed to be like 100% sympathetic and just like, yeah, everybody's being super unreasonable. These are living people. And instead, I was just like, this is fucked, man. Yeah, I don't like this. Like, maybe just kill him and bail. Just get out of there and don't ever use that flesh shit again. And we can all just keep living like we don't know this is something that's out there and possible.
It's also like another consequence of human arrogance and entitlement to be like, we don't want to pay more people in this dangerous line of work. We figured this thing out, which they probably got from somewhere. And let's just make copies of our people to do the work so that our people don't die.
Right.
Because this is so dangerous. It's like, but these are living things that you're creating. So you're creating slaves that can die, and then you can just recreate a slave.
I mean,
Again,
that's basically
Cylons.
the Westworld thing. Like,
yeah,
you know, there are beings being, and the advantage in Westworld, they need to have emotions for the whole thing to work. They need to experience genuine emotional reactions to things. So that's the other fucked up part, is like putting in a factor that causes them to legitimately suffer.
Yeah.
There's
But,
no
like,
need for them to create copies of themselves that have all
No.
of the same emotional reactions to things. That's just what they chose to do.
Yeah, just stop being greedy and pay people and put some safety measures in effect instead of like throwing people into a 13th century monastery where there's some sort of acid underneath it. How about you just leave it all alone? And you won't have the situation that's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah. So, in summary, fuck the police.
Basically.
So,
I was
she
accused
doesn't
of
even
being-
say I barely touched you. She says I never touched you. You've got 2 left feet. That is some bullshit. I never touched you.
So do you think that Jennifer, since we're meeting human Jennifer, and then later we have Ganger Jennifer, who's like tells her story to Rory. But based on what you know about Jennifer here, where you see her as a liar, is she trustworthy?
No.
Is Ganger Jennifer trustworthy?
I would say probably.
But they're exactly the same.
Yeah, but one of them has like, you know, the motivation to actually like try and work with people that I feel like original Jennifer doesn't have in this moment.
But she lets go of that later.
Yeah, only after being betrayed.
Yeah.
She just like, in this moment, she has no reason to lie. I don't know.
Just a liar.
I just really don't get that. What was that? Like, we didn't see it happen. Don't gaslight me. It was just a weird scene. Like, again, I don't know if that's on purpose or what. Is the script wanting me to believe that she's a liar? Or is this all, like, coincidental?
I don't know.
I don't know either, Jamie. I don't know either. Anyway, all right. So we see the dude falls into the acid. He's like burning up. We see them like really not have the reaction one would expect. They go back to like their main area, and the dude that apparently just got burned in acid is standing there waiting for them and is talking about workman's comp and seems to be really angry, like in a genuine way that I found very interesting. And then we cut to his face in the puddle of acid as he screams and sinks into the depths, never to be seen again.
Right, and earlier he says, my nerve endings have shut off, which, so he's not feeling what it feels like for acid to be burning your flesh and bones. But then that last shot makes you wonder, has it completely? Mm-hmm. Because he seems to be in pain.
That's true. So it's like he's somehow experiencing through... I mean... Okay, so that's a good question, I guess. I have been assuming... had been assuming that they were sort of controlling these beings via a connection that allowed them to see what was going... Do you know what I'm saying? Like a puppet?
No, yeah, they're not.
Yeah, so that... When he says my nerve endings are shutting off, that's the actual being saying that, right?
Yeah. And they explain it to the doctor and Amy and Rory later that, it's a copy of our everything, but the nerve endings will shut off, if something bad happened so that they don't feel pain, which we don't have the option of doing. That's why we started making these instead of having more and more workers getting hurt by acid.
Right.
When really, I mean, come on, guys. Again, the easiest thing to do would be to stop fucking mining the acid.
That's
leave it
nonsense.
alone.
Well, I didn't even really understand the words you said there. You want them to what was it? You said stop doing the dangerous thing that makes a lot of money? I'm sorry. That just didn't make any sense.
What is anybody going to be using this acid for? Probably projectiles to throw at people.
That is so not at all what I had in mind, and I find it so hilarious that was like I bet this is why, when that never even...
Look, I don't trust governments anymore, so...
I love moments like this where you get to really see how completely differently your brain works than whoever it is you're talking to. Because, like, my first assumption was what they use, like, acids normally for is in manufacturing, like, the kinds of things that you have to do, like, etching and tech stuff. Like, I would imagine they use acid to create, like, computer parts. But... a projectile doesn't seem totally out of the question. Like, once you say it, I'm like, oh, I see that. But it just never entered my head. Why stop with
tear gas? Let's just throw acid at people.
That is certainly a tactic that has been taken up in the past.
Yeah.
So
acid is some dangerous shit, is what I'm saying. Like, why are we mining it? Just stop creating pseudo-humans that can feel pain so that you don't have to pay real humans. Like, stop just being shitty. Corporations, whoever decided this. Military.
Yeah, military, seems like.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is really funny, though. We cut back to we cut to the TARDIS. Muse's song from Twilight is playing.
Ew, is that from Twilight?
100%.
Please don't associate Muse with Twilight. Muse is fucking amazing.
This was the song that I used for every Twilight episode. This was the theme song.
It's a great song.
It's a very good song. And when I heard it, I just could not stop laughing. I already have said to Miles that at my wedding, he has to dance to this song with me. Because this is just our thing now.
It's not a danceable song, but okay.
It will be. We'll figure it out. Trust me.
The song's called Supermassive Black Hole. It's so good.
But yeah, anyway, so... We see the doctor is still, like, keeping track of Amy's weird unpregnancy. And she is still unaware that that's what's happening. she and Rory are playing darts. It's a really interesting, like, domestic moment. Mm-hmm. You know, watching them, like, have this time together that is not... There's no crisis happening here. And just seeing the way things work when... I mean, hanging around and playing darts isn't the thing that I would have put money on them doing.
It's just getting a glimpse of, like, the downtime when they haven't landed somewhere. Nothing is really happening. Like, how are they entertaining themselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, I mean, it makes sense, but it just seems so... what's the word I want here? It's so sedate. And it's like they're just at a bar or something. And I just find it really weird and puzzling. It's not weird and puzzling. And I think that's what I feel so, like, off about, you know? If they were, like, you know, researching the next weird place they're going to go, or taping up wounds from whatever the fuck they just walked out of probably before this episode started, I'd be like, yeah, all right, that seems to make sense to me. But it's just them, like, hanging out and joking around and having some drinks. And I'm like, really? Well, it's okay. There's no drinks, by the way, guys. I made that up, but close enough. And they wind up getting fucked up by this electrical storm, magnetic storm. What is it called?
It's a solar tsunami.
Solar tsunami. I love Rory saying, "Doctor, my tummy's gone a little funny."
Yeah.
I don't know why, but anytime somebody says tummy, I find it hilarious. No, just it's such a childish word, and it's just, I don't know, I find it really funny. And the TARDIS basically crash lands in front of this castle. They think that maybe they have time traveled into the past, and it becomes clear pretty quickly that they are in the future because of the piping, and the Doctor uses his screwdriver to get a sense of what's going on with the piping, and he sees that it's lined with ceramic, so it has to be something corrosive inside.
Also, like, Amy thinks that they're in the medieval era, and Roy's like, that's not likely. And she's like, what, are you an expert on the medieval era? And he's like, no, I hear Dusty Springfield.
That's right, I forgot that. And I kind of wanted to say, I bet he is an expert on the medieval era, because, like, he kind of lived through it. So,
yeah, he probably is, actually, Amy.
Yeah, you know.
Stop treating your awesome husband like he's some doofus.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. Damn right.
Team Rory.
Fuck it.
Always.
I get so agitated, guys. I am so happy at one point this episode where Sarah says Amy's a lucky girl, and Rory just says, yeah, she is.
Yeah, because she is. Because Rory is the best.
Thank you, Rory, for saying the thing that we needed you to understand for so long that it didn't seem like you did. We needed you to get this, buddy.
Yes. And he's particularly awesome in this episode. He
is. He's really, like, putting his foot down about stuff, and I don't know, he's listening. Yeah.
He's been with the Doctor and Amy in these situations enough and he's a nurse, that he's, like, using all of the information he has and be like, no, I'm going to go get her and make sure she's okay. Mm-hmm. And not just sit around and wait for somebody to need me or something to happen.
Right.
I like a take charge, Rory.
Agreed. I mean, take charge men are just... There's a difference, too, between take charge men and asshole men, which so many men just don't seem to really get that distinction.
Yeah, it's true.
If you take charge, you have to know what you're talking about and have an actual plan. You can't just be ordering people around because you think that means something. Just FYI.
That's not taking charge. That's dictating.
Yeah, and
they don't know the difference.
Very, very sad to see when somebody really thinks that they're, like, being firm and tough, and it's clear to everybody around them that they just don't know what they're doing or what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole other story. So this is when the doctor, like, they are looking through, you see, like, people peering through these holes. You don't see, but you see, like, from their perspective, peering through these openings in the castle walls at them. And as they start to walk up these stairs, Rory, like, sticks his fingers in a bucket of something that turns out to be old acid.
He touches, like, a wet spot on the wall or something.
And, yeah, he would have lost his fingers, says the doctor, if that had been new acid. But instead, it just kind of stings, it seems like, is the main effect of it.
Yeah. Which,
Rory, have you not learned, when hanging out with the doctor, to not stick your fingers in strange places?
Also, just, being an adult human being.
Yeah, right?
In the world, God. Any world, like, don't touch stuff if you don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good advice from us to you, everybody. I remember as a kid one time, this is so funny, actually, now that I think about it. It's kind of stupid and messed up, but I was a kid and I didn't know any better. I had something that was powered with batteries, and it had been sitting for a while. And when I opened up the battery case to replace them, it was covered in, like, that brown battery acid.
It was corroded.
That's the one. And I did not know what battery acid was. And I was like, that's interesting. It looks kind of like peanut butter. And I straight up stuck my finger in that and licked it.
Oh, my God.
Uh-huh. I probably was like 4 or 5. And I still remember it. And just like I immediately realized I had been a mistake. And I had been a mistake. That had been a mistake.
You are a mistake.
I was a mistake. Why? But it was just one of those moments of me, like, and I remember I talked to my mom, like, a few days later and told her that I had licked battery acid, and she just, like, looked at me in that way that moms do, where they want to yell at you, but the thing that you just told them about is so old that they have no power anymore. And she looked very angry, though. Like,
did it not burn your tongue?
Oh, it definitely did. That was how I knew I had made a mistake. Yes, that was it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so, it was not peanut butter in any case. So the doctor, he walks in and hears people coming. He says almost people. And we find out very shortly what this means, because he seems to get... I'm not sure. Is it supposed to be that his screwdriver can tell that they're not regular people?
It's unclear, but I would imagine his screwdriver scans the area and sort of gives him a reading of what is around.
Okay. So they walk into this, like, weird sort of hall, and there's all these sort of, what's the word I want? Nooks? It's not the word. Niches? Is it a niche? That have these weird racks in them.
Like recesses?
Recesses. That's a good word. Yeah, let's go with recesses. And there are people in them. And then in runs the people that are in on those racks. And understandably, Amy is just like, what the fuck is going on? Is this like, are you guys twins? What are you doing? And there's this one woman who is in charge. What is her name?
Cleves.
Cleves? Okay, yeah.
Miranda Cleves.
And she tells them that they are in a bunch of trouble. The doctor is like, nuh-uh, you. And shows her his ID. And she does not appear to be particularly moved It's not like, you know, he shows her this and she immediately starts backtracking. She's suspicious. She's kind of like, oh, really? And I found interesting.
She also thinks that, like, okay, we get these sort of solar flares all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a big problem, the mainland would call us back. And they're not doing that, so you're just a weatherman. Like, she keeps calling him weatherman.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which is, honestly, pretty cold-blooded. I'm not mad at the concept of just calling the doctor a weatherman from now on. And there's a feeling to that seems right. And it's not like he just deals in weather, but there's something about the way that he, like, predicts things and tries to, like, tell people what to expect. And I really see that. That works for me, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
His bow tie, I mean, honestly. So yeah, these people are all very suspicious of who they are and why they're here. The doctor tells her to bring them to the, what does he call it? A crucial operation? And she says, which one? And he just stares at her and says, you know which one. And I really like that he doesn't say, because he probably doesn't actually know.
Right.
But he can say, you know which one, and she does know. And she kind of shows her hand there, but she might not have actually meant to do that. And so she got a little bit tricked, a tiny bit. But, do you know what I mean? Like, but not, like, I can't tell if she really thinks that I assume she really believes that he already knows. Because of the way he's behaving. But I find it amusing how well that worked. Because, bitch, he's just kind of doing a mentalist thing on you right there. You know? Letting you fill in the blanks. They should have trained you to watch out for things like that. That's all I'm saying. So she introduces him to the flesh. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It can reproduce absolutely any object or any living thing, I think she says.
Any living organism, yeah.
Oh, okay. Down, as she puts it, down to the hairs on their chinny chin chin, which I rather liked. And even their clothes, everything is identical, which was particularly impressive to me.
I suppose that was a concession that had to be made in the writing of this episode, that, like, it can replicate any living organism, but that means it comes out naked. And that doesn't work for the story that they want to tell here, where you can't tell the difference.
Right.
So they have to be replicated exactly, their clothes and all.
Right. And like I said, that's fine, you know?
It's fine.
It's fine. I don't mind that. There are things you got to do. If you have more time, then I would be interested in seeing what happens if they do come out with no clothes and what that changes in terms of how the story works and what they are forced to do in order to, like, pass. But,
like, we discussed a little bit last week. We talked about, I think it was last week, when we talked about the time traveler's wife. That might have been a few weeks ago.
Right, yeah.
But when he would time travel, he would show up with no clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
Because his clothes would not travel.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's explaining how, like, this thing is no big deal. Or not even no big deal, but, like, because she seems to be properly impressed with it. But she's really trying to downplay the concept of any kind of danger with it.
Right. She says the site was too dangerous and they were losing workers every week, and so the military commissioned the creation of the gangers who could mine the site and interact with acid without putting anyone else in danger.
Mm-hmm. And it's very clear that the doctor's already seeing some fucking holes in this. Mm-hmm. And she is telling him that, yeah, it's alive, but it's alive the way that moss is alive. Like, it's really not, it's not an intelligent being. It doesn't seem to, like, experience pain or anything like that. And it's obvious that she definitely believes that. I don't think she's, like, conning him or anything. But I find it insane that a company would use something like this and not consider what else could be going on here, guys. Like,
well, it's short-sighted in the way that a lot of human beings can be about the agency or, emotional depth of something else.
Yeah.
And, I mean, let's be honest, there are humans who look at other humans as less than and not having the same kind of feelings, not having the same kind of right to make their own choices because they're seen as less than. So
I'm not really sure what you are referring to there, Jamie. Can you get a little bit more explicit and explain that to me, please? I don't know. I don't think I've ever run into that myself, is all I'm saying, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know how to talk to you anymore. So, anyway, it's not surprising that they'd be like, oh, this thing can replicate a human entirely, down to, like, the most, like, repressed memories, all their childhood, everything, they remember it. Everything is exactly the same.
Right.
Why would that not include the ability to feel pain or make decisions for themselves or have any kind of agency? Yeah. They see it as less than. And the doctor, obviously, when he scans it and then when he touches it, knows that there's more to it than that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not even going to bother. It's like moss. And that's the kind of thing, like, when people try to argue with me about how animals don't have feelings. So I'm like, well, then you've never fucking been around one.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, they do.
Yeah.
And it's really arrogant of you to think that just because they feel things in a different way and they express things in a different way, that they don't actually have emotion or feel pain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when people want to argue with me that you don't know if plants feel pain and you eat them, I'm done. Like, come on. There have to be levels. But don't tell me that an animal doesn't feel pain or doesn't feel emotion, because I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And there are honestly people who don't think that.
Yeah, that's one of those that I'm like, I can't tell if people even really mean it when they say they don't think that. I feel like to a point they are telling themselves what they want so that they can just, like, continue to do what they do. And as a meat eater, I have just had to kind of come to terms with, like, yeah, I have decided that this is a sacrifice that I am willing to make, even though it's not me making it, really.
And that's fine. I'm not the kind of vegetarian that is, like, preachy about it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, yesterday, like, I had to give my cat, we're trying to find food that he'll eat because he had lost his appetite for a while. And he's getting it back, but the vet was very concerned with how much weight that he's lost. So he's like, just feed him whatever he wants, whatever he'll eat. So I went to the pet store and bought so many different kinds of food because I want to find the thing he responds best to. Mm-hmm. And the first one that I gave him was rabbit. And it's, like, made with real rabbit, and it's got all this gravy in it. And when he wasn't as interested in it as he is in some of the other stuff I've given him, my first thought was, don't let that rabbit sacrifice be nothing. Eat the rabbit.
Yep.
That rabbit died for you. Eat the rabbit. But the cat doesn't understand that. So I was just like,
died for you. Fuck.
I'm sorry, little bunny. I tried to make your sacrifice worth it. He didn't like it. He liked the juice, but he didn't like the meat. So that's fine.
Gross. I hated that whole sentence.
But I like when people, like, you see it on Top Chef a lot, where they're like, this animal died, don't waste it. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that, because I understand people are not going to just not eat meat. But please, just make it worth the sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay, we got way off topic here. This fucking between the flesh milk and he liked the juice but not the meat. I just all turned around.
Gravy. I'm sorry. My brain moves really quickly. My mouth can't catch up. It was the gravy he liked. Is that better?
I don't know. I guess at this point it's kind of fixed.
It's a fixed point in time. It can't be changed anymore.
It's interesting to me here when Rory is talking to. Oh God, I am so annoyed.
Jennifer?
No. Is it no Cleves?
Okay.
When he's talking to Cleves here, he says, "So you're flesh now," and she says, "Don't be scared. This thing is just like operating a forklift truck." But she is in the flesh as she says that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't totally understand. This is what I mean about it seeming like a puppet.
I think it's not like the real or the human Cleves is talking through the ganger.
Right.
It's like the ganger just has the same thought processes as the human, and then later what we see is almost like an awakening to them. That they don't have to die, and these humans would just kill us, but we are alive.
Okay.
It's like the first time they're ever able or even given a chance to think that way.
Because of the doctor, because of him being in contact? Is that kind of
maybe
what motivated that, do you think? Because that's my main question, is just like, why now? You know,
maybe because the doctor tried to make them see eye to eye, and they're never really given the opportunity to even, because they're put out there to work, and then they either melt in the acid or get injured and have to be, I don't know what happens if they just get bumped on the head or an arm gets chopped off or whatever. They're never given the opportunity to like make their own decisions. And in this hour where there was no human with them and it was just the gangers, it's like they realized we're just as good as they are. We're just as valid as they are, and they're over there asleep.
Got you. Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like they had an awakening, kind of like on Westworld when they start becoming aware.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can deal with that. So yeah, this thing is just like operating a forklift truck, and the doctor says you said it could grow. And he had used his little doodad, but then he like puts his hand near it. And he like, they're all sort of yelling for the doctor to not do this thing, which he does not listen to. He says that it was for a moment like it was scanning me. Mm-hmm. And now he understands. And when he has his hand like partially in it, and it sort of looks like, I kept forgetting, to be honest, that this isn't also acid, because he was making a face like he was being burned a little bit, but it's more of like a mental burn, I guess. But yeah, he says, you have no idea. I felt it in my mind. And all I could think in this scene was about that moment in Independence Day, where the doctor gets like the sucker on his forehead. Or not the doctor, the president. Do you remember the president? Do you remember Independence Day?
Yeah, I was trying to think of when it was the alien that took, it wasn't the president, it was Data. It was the guy who played Data in Star Trek Next Generation. He's
the one that gets killed, but the president is the one that gets his brain like connected to theirs for a second.
No, because the president's outside of the...
Yeah, and he breaks the glass.
I need to rewatch it. I don't remember.
And the president tells them that they're like locusts, and they just go from one planet to another and kill everything and take everything, and then they move on. Trust me. Trust me. I've seen this movie far too many times for...
I have too, which is why it's kind of frustrating to me that I'm like, why don't I not remember Bill Pullman being spoken through by the aliens?
Oh, they don't speak through him.
Oh.
That's Data. But he is, like, connected. They get through the glass and smack him on the head with one of their, like, tentacles.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, God, guys. We are such fucking nerds. Okay, so, Cleves tells him, don't fiddle with the money, Doctor. That was a real telling line there. I like that. And he is explaining to them that they are pouring their personalities and lives and memories right into it, and you don't even get it. And he takes out the snow globe right here. Mm-hmm. What was that about?
He uses it outside, too. It's just another one of those things where he's using some sort of item that we recognize as one thing, and he's using it to determine something else. And it seems like that's what he's using to figure out how close the, like, solar storm is.
Okay.
Like, that's his little weather indicator.
So everybody starts to be worried about this storm, which is starting to get a little bit more dangerous. And they are expressing some desires to get the fuck out while the getting is good. And Cleves is like, we haven't finished our job, guys. So no, first of all. And second of all, absolutely not. And I just really like, oh man, at this point in my life, I am not here for let's keep on working even though it's super dangerous or else we won't meet our quotas. Like, I have had it, kids. It has been had. I am not interested anymore. I used to fall prey so completely to the concerns of employers because I wanted to make a good impression and be seen as responsible. And I just can't emphasize enough how fucking few shits I give. And my patience, it's just non-existent. It gone. So, meanwhile, we see Sarah, and she is
Jennifer.
clocking in. Or, yeah, right. This is Jennifer. Who's Sarah?
There is no Sarah. I don't know where you got that from.
Oh, that's the actress's name. That's the actress's name is Sarah Smart. My bad. Because she, I'm using like the Amazon X-ray. And I got them mixed up. And Sarah Smart does not sound like a real name. It sounds like a name for the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
I just
Sally
assumed
Sparrow.
that was a character name. Yeah. So yeah, she's clocking in, and they Cleves tells her to get into the rack and do her thing, become one of these dealies. So she gets into it, and we watch the creation of this being happen. And it's very unnerving. I did not like this one bit.
Yeah, it starts with the eyes.
Yeah, and there's like all of these little black threads that show up in the surface that I guess are meant to be like veins and things.
That's what I thought too, because they looked kind of red on my screen.
Yeah. Ooh, no, friends. I did not like it at all. And as you say, like the eyes are one of the first things to pop up. Her nose is not very distinct, and she's got all of this like, this really odd alien look to her for a moment before it all sort of settles into place, and she looks normal. And this comes back. It's like when they feel othered, they look othered.
Yep.
It's like a reaction their body seems to have to this. It's interesting. And meanwhile, the doctor is, doing his, trying to convince Cleves to evacuate everybody, trying to get her to understand the like level of threat here from these creatures as well. They're talking about how the because, like, it's really kind of a neat thing. We are coming into this, like, future, but it's not, things are not up to date. So even though it's far beyond where we are, it's very, everything that they are working with for this mine is just outdated, and the concern is that the pipes are old and haven't been replaced in a while. And
they're only in the 22nd century, so they're only like 100 years ahead of us.
Okay. So yeah, there's like a very real threat that these storms are going to pop the pipes, and that would be bad. That would be very bad. But again, she just doesn't really seem to care. So the doctor yanks her away and tells her, "You're right at the crossroads. Don't go the wrong way." Which I rather like that phrasing of that. And she tells him, "My factory, my rules." And I just have no patience for it. Like, I just really don't. Anytime that you can see somebody's ego coming into play like that, get over yourself. You know? So, an alarm begins to go off. We begin to hear thunder. The fucking lights above the, like, when the camera pulls back and we see the sky, there is this crazy, like, orange light. And the doctor is realizing that there's, like, a solar source of power in this factory that when the wave hits it, the factory is probably just going to explode.
Yeah, there's basically a weather vane, but it's got some solar attachments because they draw their power from solar energy.
Right, exactly. Okay. After he says that, he says, "I've got to go get to that cockerel before all hell breaks loose." And then smiles at them and says, "I never thought I'd get to say that again."
I don't have an answer for your next question, which is what?
What is that?
I don't know.
But Jamie, but you're supposed to tell me.
Okay, it could be a couple of things. It could be something referencing an old episode, or it could just be one of those things where it's like the doctor travels through time. I don't know.
Wait,
someone will tell us. It could be a legitimate reference to something that happened in a past episode.
Right. I don't understand the other thing, though, which is the doctor travels through time.
Just the doctor travels through time and gets in adventures, and there must have been some adventure he had where he had to say something specifically about going to the cockerel before all hell breaks loose. I don't know. A lot of times I'm just like, that must just be like wanting us to assume that there was some adventure at some point.
Okay. Well, as long as I'm not missing anything, because there was like, I was like, did that get said somewhere else? And I like forgot.
If it's something from an actual Doctor Who episode, one of our Doctor Who historians will tell us.
Yes, please do. So, yeah. He says, "Amy, breathe," runs away, and he winds up going to the, he like winds up getting like basically blasted across the entire roof by the force of this, this storm, I suppose.
And so did everybody.
Right, true. It's really weird. Like, this whole thing is just so spooky because, like, you see all of the, flesh people. I don't know what to, like, I don't want to just call them gangers because that feels like a slur now. You know what I mean?
Like a slur within the show?
Yeah, like we're calling them that because they're just like nothings.
You could call them you could call them doppelgangers, which is what ganger is derived from.
Yeah, but that still feels like it's not really giving them their personhood. But they don't have any because they just took it from someone else. All right, fine. Gangers is fine. we see them all standing and staring at the storm. And then we see them like on their racks and their sort of like eyes are kind of half opening. And it's real freaky to have their eyes half opening when they're like only the whites of their eyes show for a second.
Yeah.
I find that very unnerving, kids. I did not like that. Meanwhile, acid is beginning to leak out and we see like the TARDIS begin to sort of sink into the surface of the courtyard where it's parked. And as the fucking storm continues to rage and we have the faces of the gangers watching it, we see it cut to like Freaky Face for a second.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's happening right there. You know, I've been saying that like the doctor was part of their awakening, but maybe it was the storm.
Maybe
That's what did it. Well, I don't know. So the doctor wakes up and does not know how long it has been. And it feels like it's only been a couple minutes, but it seems pretty clear pretty quickly that it has been more time than that.
Well, Cleves, when he runs into her, she says that she was unconscious for a couple of minutes. And he says that it has to have been at least an hour. But that a lot can happen in an hour.
Which this Cleves that he's talking to when he says that turns out to be a ganger, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And because I kind of started to sense that when she doesn't realize how long it's been and he says, yeah, see, I said disoriented. And I was like, you're saying that about her. Okay, I think I see what's happening here. All right, so I'm trying to like keep it because this is such a strange series of events, and it sort of bounces back and forth between what's going on with Jennifer and her independently realizing what she is and what's going on, and everybody else who is way behind her in terms of like getting it.
Well, all the ones that are on the racks are the humans.
Right.
And only Cleves and Jennifer that we see here are gangers. The other gangers have gone off on their own.
Okay.
So, like, when they hear the record playing, that's because the ganger version of that guy started playing those records. And when they go into the dining hall and there's all this stuff everywhere, they've gone through all of their stuff. It's like they suddenly have self-actualized.
Well, that's what I mean, is like they don't seem to be aware, the others, that they are gangers yet. Like, it felt like they took longer, and Jennifer was the first one that we saw, like, really look in the mirror and realize.
Or maybe she was the last one. It's just that she's the one we're with.
Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. And yeah, all of their stuff has been, like, searched through because to them, these are their things. They even have the memory of leaving them here. Like, you know, as far as they know, they were the ones who came to work and clocked in this morning and put their bag on the hook and then went in, which is wild. Or they're just
dealing with their, like, I know I'm not him, but I'm him. And look, I can build a house of cards too, and I can listen to these records and I like them too. It's like they know they're not human, but they also know they're alive. Right.
Yeah, it's a pretty mindfucky little thing happening here. I feel really bad for this moment when Jennifer's looking in the mirror and she like kind of vomits the flesh milk.
Yeah.
I hate that I even just said that, but that is basically what happens. It's so gross too. I wonder what that mixture is. Does that come up in the trivia? what they
There
used.
There was nothing of any value in the trivia.
Ah, boo. Oh, well. But the doctor is trying to explain to them all that these things are probably out there scared and disoriented with a whole life in their head. And we need to keep in mind how they're feeling at the moment. And so Rory is with Jen, and he's trying to comfort her. He's really trying his best. And he's in the bathroom, and she winds up, like, getting upset after vomiting and goes into the stall. And he's standing there trying to, like, talk her through what she's feeling. And he gets decked in the face with an arm that came through the, like, portal of the stall.
Yep.
And then we see this neck with her head on the end.
Yeah. Really, really terrible CGI, too.
Oh, this is really bad. I am screenshotting the hell out of this. And I really want you to use this as the new banner image in the
We're
group.
due for a new banner because I still have the fish lady from Vampires of Venice. We haven't had a new one since then, so please give me a new one.
So freaky. Oh my God, it's so funny in its way. Okay, I took two, and you can choose your favorite. I'll send them both to you. Because one of them has the subtitle, "Just Let Us Live," and the other one doesn't. And it's just her with her, like, weird cataract eyes. Poor Rory. All he tries to do is his best. And he can't win, man. It's just rough. All right, so we go back to everybody saying we need to protect ourselves. The doctor heats something up in the microwave to demonstrate to Cleves that she isn't, like, fully feeling things yet, because he hands her the hot plate and she cannot tell that it is hot until he, like, mentions it.
Yeah, she doesn't know that she's a ganger either.
Right. It's a really, like, when he hands it to her and she takes it and just looks at him, it was a very I feel for you right now, Cleves, kind of moment for me. The look that she gives him of just like, what the fuck is this? I just was really like, yep, that's where I'm at. Okay, good. It's not just me then. Oh, God, I don't know why. I just found that shit super funny. And yeah, and then when he mentions, like, that's extremely hot, by the way, and she immediately drops it and then says, why couldn't I feel that? And I'm like, ooh, bitch. Shit isn't what you thought. All right. But up. I'm trying to... We have, like, the whole thing with the acid breaking and them needing the acid suits. There's only one set of acid suits. So eventually the gangers, like, they get a hold of that. So they're going to be the ones that are safe in this environment.
Right. Why would they give the gangers acid suits when the whole point of them is for them to be dispensable?
It's weird, though, because then they did have acid suits for the job. Even though they are dispensable. Do you know, like, that acid suit, they were lamenting the loss of it because it's so expensive.
Right.
After What's-His-Face died.
True.
So I guess that even though they are, like, the beings are dispensable, that the acid probably wreaks enough havoc with a human body that it wouldn't make the job possible if they didn't have them, is the assumption that I'm going. Like, they still need some sort of protection. I don't know. I find that a little bit interesting. But yeah, this acid is beginning to get kind of out of hand. And as you say later, the doctor loses his shoes. Poor Rory is hiding from Jennifer, who is desperately trying to explain to him what she's feeling. And he actually listens and calls her by her name, and she gets very emotional about that and kisses him on the mouth. Or on the cheek? I don't even remember.
It's on the cheek, but it's close to his mouth.
She's trying it. That's all I'm saying.
She's into Rory.
Yeah, it's clear. I kind of liked when he hugs her initially. He sort of looks up at Amy as it's happening, and she gives him a little bit of a nod, like she's being like, yeah, it's okay, I get it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt like he was doing it's not my fault. And she was like, yeah, I know it's not your fault. Chill out. I found that really funny. But yeah, so Amy can't find Rory. She goes off to try and search for him, despite the advice that she is given to do no such thing. And she goes, and she's like, really, they say that she should have an acid suit when she goes and looks for him, but she does not take one. Meanwhile, these other dudes are going down the halls, like, looking for the others with this, like, attitude that they're going into a war. Like cops going into a building with their back up against things. You know, it's they're very aggressive, and it's clear that they are not here to make friends. And I don't know. I had a very strong reaction to seeing them behave this way to themselves, even though it is a separate entity. I just feel like I don't know if I could inflict harm on someone who looks exactly like me.
Right.
I feel like I would have trouble doing that. So I guess we'd all have to agree to attack others, right? Like not our own person. We would each attack the others. But yeah, this is, they are, you know, assuming that there is going to be some serious trouble. And as it turns out, they're right, but not for the reasons that we thought. I love seeing the TARDIS like sinking. So eventually you can only see the like edge of police box showing. And as that's happening, we go back to the fucking flesh milk, and you see these lips coming out of that and saying, "Trust me." And I was immediately like, oh, the Doctor has a ganger now. Did he intend this?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Okay. I just wanted to double check. Because there was a part of me that was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like prepared to make a version of himself in order to make a point, you know? But it appears this was purely accidental. It's
possible. He is the Doctor. He doesn't always share his plans.
That's really the thing. I'm never sure if this is an accident or if this was on purpose. Sometimes I think it's an accident that you're pretending was on purpose to make it seem like you've got your act together a little bit better than you do, Doctor. No offense. But yeah, when the gangers' faces changed to ganger faces, I really hated that. I really hated it so much. They're not just creepy looking. They also look damp.
Yes, they're very damp and they're very Voldemort-y because their noses are kind of gone except for some little slits where the nostrils are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like that at all. It's just really... I don't... It feels so, like... You know what it reminds me of? Did you watch any X-Files ever?
Yeah, some. I watched a lot of X-Files until Mulder left.
Do you remember the episode with the Fluke Man?
Yes.
They look like the Fluke Man. That's what they look like. I don't care for that at all. Nothing should look like the Fluke Man because that was one of the most awful designs ever.
Well, that was like season 1, episode 3 or something. Like, that was really early on in, like, 1991 or whatever. Like, they didn't have any kind of technology.
Oh, God, it was so bad, guys.
Yeah.
People have asked me to cover that show, and I can't imagine what they're thinking.
I don't know if it would be that interesting to cover.
I don't think so.
It's a good show, but I don't know if there's enough to really talk about because it's so procedural and so, like, episodic. There's not a lot of carryover until later. I don't know.
You're naming a bunch of things that were not factors for me. All I was thinking was, this is hella goofy.
Well, that too.
That's the main thing for me. Is
that
like,
too.
I'm just going to spend the whole time mocking it, and you guys aren't going to like that.
I just look at shows that, like, they're very popular and everybody likes them, but there's not enough there to discuss. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the X-Files is a little of both, where there is stuff to discuss, but it takes a long time to get there. Mm-hmm. And before that, it's really just Monster of the Week.
Completely, yeah.
Which isn't always entertaining when there's not a whole lot of carryover.
Yeah. I think that's the main thing, is like, there is other stuff that happens, but I don't feel like that's ever the point of the show. Like, it never feels to me like that's why we're here, is for Dana's sister or whatever. You know what I mean?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Don't get me started. Anyway, just flashed us back.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted that.
I forgot all about that. On purpose, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right. So Amy finds Rory. I love that at one point Jennifer says to Rory that, like, she almost died, and he's like, "Welcome to my world."
Yeah.
And when Amy says that she's looking for Rory, the doctor says, "Rory, Rory, always with the Rory." Listen.
And he mimes the nose.
Does he?
Yes.
Oh, that is rude. I did not see that.
Rory's nose it's distinctive, but it's not that big.
It really isn't at all.
Doctor. It's no Matt Smith's chin, let me say.
Yeah, you know, Matt Smith, you don't have a fucking leg to stand on when it comes to making fun of people's appearances, my friend. Listen. I just, like, you've got one of Hollywood's weirdest faces, in my opinion. And you got lucky somehow, and congratulations on fucking getting everybody to agree on this shared delusion, but I don't think that you get to say anything about anyone else, so...
I don't think that it's Matt Smith that's saying it. To be fair, I think it's the writers.
I think...
have made that a constant doctor joking about Rory's appearance thing.
It does not endear me to him. I'm just saying. They keep on acting like, oh, isn't it funny? No, it is not funny. Rory keeps nearly dying.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody making fun of him ever again. He has put up with a lot. And I think that he deserves a little bit of respect.
True.
He doesn't get no respect. So they all talk to the gangers all talk to her, explain, or not the gangers, the other humans tell her that she's a copy who is pretending, which is
Tell
wild.
Jennifer this?
Yeah, right? Because she's sitting there at the table with them, and he says, "You're a copy
Yeah.
of her, you're just pretending." And I don't understand, like, the whole thing is meant to be that they function so completely as the person. That's the appeal of these creatures. So the idea that she's, like, pretending, this stuff doesn't operate that way. It's not programmed to behave a certain way. And so the idea of pretending doesn't work there, you know? That ascribes a kind of intent that she can't have.
Right.
That's like me being like, you know, these apples are pretending to be Granny Smith. Like, apples don't care. They're what they are, and that's all there is to it. So they're giving her all sorts of, like, they're accusing her of all sorts of motivation and agenda that she just can't have. That's not how this... But then she's a person now, so now she can, I guess. I don't know, Jamie. I'm just really confused about it all, okay?
I think they get pushed to the point where they tap into that human deviousness.
Right.
Because at first, when they're all together, the one is like, yeah, when Andy was born, this is what I was feeling, and this is how I reacted when I found out I had a son, and how would I know that? Because I have your memories, but I was there. Like, basically what he's saying is, as far as I'm concerned, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
There is no, like, you're telling me this happened. I remember it happening.
Right.
And it takes something like that for at least that guy to really start to understand that it's, yes, you guys have copied yourselves with the intention that it knows what you know so it can do your job.
Yeah.
And potentially get hurt or injured, and it's not consequential. Mm-hmm. But when it comes down to it, they have all of your memories in a way that they feel everything you felt. They know everything you know. They are you, essentially. And so at first, the gangers aren't like, I want to live and you have to die. It isn't until Cleves comes in and kills one of them.
Like a
that they're
fucking idiot.
Yeah, that they're like, well, now it's us against you. Now it's you against us. And so now we have to fight. Because you made it an us or them kind of thing.
Right. I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed that Cleves was the one to, like, break the trust that had been starting to sort of form there. Because it felt too much like this repeat of the mom in the underground alien problem scenario.
Yeah, a little bit. I can see what you mean.
She just feels like she's got a really similar personality there. But what can you do? All right. So the doctor says, because they're all, discussing this in terms, as he puts it, like, we're not talking about an accident that needs to be mopped up. We're talking about sacred life. Do you understand? Which they clearly don't.
Right, because they don't think that these things can have souls. Mm-hmm. Because they're like, no, we made you. Mm-hmm. This is all very Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, with Battlestar Galactica, it's like one of those situations where I can kind of understand, like, I understand where the human beings are coming from. In Battlestar Galactica, I don't at all. Like, in Battlestar Galactica, I'm like, yeah, you created new beings, and now you have to fucking cope with that. And this, it doesn't have that same energy to me, and I don't really know why. It's just, it doesn't, I just feel like, man, you guys are in a pretty bad situation. This sucks, doesn't it? And it doesn't have, I don't feel the same protectiveness of these beings as I did the beings in Battlestar.
But when you first started watching Battlestar, before you got to know the Cylons, did you immediately feel protective of them?
I honestly can't remember. It's been so long now. So I don't want to say yes or no either way there, because I just genuinely don't remember how I felt.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a weird, it's a weird thing. This whole story just feels like accidentally creating life is one thing, but accidentally creating life that is kind of like claiming yours
Yeah.
is a whole different fucking kettle of fish, man.
I'm sure I've asked you this before, but have you seen the show Humans that was on BBC America?
No.
Because that's like, these are robots that look like humans that do the jobs that humans just don't really want to do. Housework, factory work, sex work, that kind of stuff. And some of them start sort of self-actualizing and realize, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I have my own agendas, my own feelings. I want to have my own life. I don't want to be a hooker. I don't want to be your housekeeper. And it's a struggle for the actual humans to even see them as anything other than robots. It seems to be a very common question with science fiction of, if you create life that's not human life, is it considered life? Are these things considered real?
Yeah. What life... I mean, we still argue, even just dealing with human beings, what constitutes life and what doesn't. We are always having that fucking argument.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that we would be just as unprepared to have the fucking conversation about AI or anything like that. Man, when it's life that's like modeled after something that you experienced, but it feels like they didn't, like, to them, it feels as if they went through everything that you did. But you know that they didn't. So it's a combination of just, I have knowledge that you don't because I watched this all happen, and I guess they also have that knowledge themselves, but it's different. Like, it's the whole context of it is different. Because can they see, like, can they remember their own birth and creation?
I don't know. Based on this episode, I don't have that answer.
That's a real one. I want to know the answer to that.
Well, you're lucky there's a part 2.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get it. Maybe you'll get that answer.
Because that's the main thing for me is, like, they don't... The human beings seem to, like, begin to realize once, you know, What's-His-Face has that conversation with himself about the birth of his son. He begins to sort of get it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like the gangers get what the human beings are feeling about this.
Right.
Do you get what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I want them to understand what it would be like to feel like your life has been kind of co-opted by somebody.
I guess the only way they would feel that is if they then made gangers of themselves.
Right. And even then, would they feel like brethren? Would it even be like, you know, somebody took my life? Or would it be, here's another one of me?
I don't know. Because in order to put them in the same situation, the humans would have to be dead, the gangers would have to make a ganger, and then those gangers would have to kill them.
Right. Well, this is a mess. So, as long as we've got that figured out.
This is like Inception levels of, like...
Yeah.
Those Russian dolls.
And if you decide that this thing has the same kind of, like, personhood as you, then what does that mean for how they function in the world? Do you bring them home with you? And introduce them to your family? Their family? So they think? Like, that's not a thing that I would... oh, yeah. I'm going to go out with my friends, honey. My other self is going to stay home and fuck you. Like... I don't like it. I don't like it, and I think I might be kind of like anti-ganger at this point, just in concept. I'm not comfortable with any of this. So that's how I feel.
It's funny, I honestly didn't think that the conversation about this episode was going to be quite so deep. I was like, yeah, this episode's pretty good.
I just, it's like I said, it's sort of being treated like a conversation about AI, but it's not that simple at all. So I don't have a place that I feel like I don't stand anywhere on this in particular that I feel confident about.
Right.
All right. So what winds up happening? We have Cleves come in with her fucking cattle prod, ruining everything as fucking usual. I love the other version of her, the Ganger version, saying, "Oh, great. You see, this is so typically me." Mm-hmm. That was honestly really funny. She's just disgusted. This bitch. Ugh. I am tired of me, kids. Lady, that is a relatable feeling you're having right now. I get it. Doctor, tell it to shut up. Oof. Listen, I'm not really like a fan of gangers, but calling them its also not cool with that. So,
well, the doctor was not cool with that either, and he points out you call your ganger it, but you call the cattle prod she. Mm-hmm. So what's going on here?
Yeah, that feels weirdly relevant to. You know what? I'm not even going to get into it. I'm not even going to do that right now because that's just going to irritate me and make me so angry. So I am going to continue on with a different line of thought, and we are just going to be... Okay. So she goes after... What's his name?
Buzzer.
Buzzer.
Well, she goes after her own ganger, and Buzzer gets in the way. Buzzer's ganger gets in the way, and he ends up getting zapped by the prod and killed.
It's pretty brutal. I didn't think this thing was... I thought it would put them down. I didn't think that it was just going to kill them.
Well, the doctor points out, like, Buzzer had a human heart.
I didn't think that prod would kill a human, is what I mean.
I guess it's enough of an electrical current that it could.
I guess. I was a little bit taken aback by it. Like, shit, It
really makes you... No, never mind. I'm not going to go back into animal rights. It's fine. Let's move on.
Both of us just keep on starting shit we aren't ready to fucking finish. So, yeah, he's dead, and this basically motivates them to split up and be, diametrically opposed. We have the doctor fucking just, you can see just how irritated and frustrated he is at the fact that he is really trying his best, and these assholes have to keep on fucking shit up the way they do.
I mean, I don't know why he's such a fan of humans, really.
Honestly, we don't have a lot to recommend us.
No.
I don't really see it for humans most of the time. And I mean, the last few days, especially, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a story for another time. So we have, oh my God, I forgot about this. We have Jennifer walking by herself, and then we just see that creepy wet hand come around the corner as he's saying, "Trust me."
It's like they were trying to fake out that it's a ganger of the doctor. Like it's something else.
I mean, was there any doubt?
No.
Everybody knew what this was, right?
He says while he's standing over the vat, "Trust me, I'm the doctor." I believe. Which is how the flesh got his praise.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
I might be wrong, but he does say, "Trust me, I'm the doctor," somewhere in this episode. before the ganger comes out and says, "Trust me, I'm the doctor."
What a goon. Okay, so...
Can you hear the helicopter?
No.
Okay.
Oh, shit. Is that to do with the protesting and everything?
Yes, there is. Oh, right. There's a protest that was starting at the park, which is only like a block and a half from my house.
Okay.
They were starting that they were gathering at 5, having a moment of silence at 5:15, and then they were going to start walking from this park to the one downtown. So I'm guessing that's why there's a helicopter so close.
Okay.
Because it's keeping an eye on that. But it worries me because it's very close to my house, and I just have a lot of people I know have been involved with what's going on here. They've been out there every day, so just it's unnerving. It just makes me worried about people.
Yep.
About my friends and about the people I don't know that are getting caught in the crossfire of this, where they're just trying to make a point.
Yep.
And getting hurt in the process. But it sounds really loud to me, so I didn't know if you could hear it.
Yeah, no, cannot hear.
Okay.
So there comes a point finally where Rory has to choose whether or not he is going to go and help Jennifer because she is out there pretty much all alone, or if he is going to run with the doctor and with Amy. And he decides that he can't leave her by herself. He just feels too bad about it. And honestly, there's a big part of me that's low-key wanting and shipping him and Ganger Jennifer. Because I just like the idea of Amy having, like, taken him for granted and then looking up and him not being there.
Well, Amy also is like, she keeps like shooting looks over, like she's all jealous.
Mm-hmm. Even though she sort of isn't initially, like she gives him permission.
Yeah, but then he leaves again. Like he's like, I am not going to leave her out there alone. Mm-hmm. And then Amy gets this look like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. Girl.
Because he's never chosen to protect anybody else and not stay by Amy's side. So yes, she's taken him for granted in a lot of ways. Plus, she's not factoring in that this is the guy who, like, waited for 2,000 years as a plastic person. And he has those memories.
Yep.
He understands what this is about probably better than anybody else.
That's true. I'm just feeling a little bit fucking petty. All right, guys. So just forgive me. I don't really want that, but there is a little part of me that's like, one could use the word gleeful if one felt like it to describe this feeling. All right. So it pretty much ends with the reveal of the Doctor Ganger. And I love the one guy saying, this is insane, we're fighting ourselves. And the doctor says, it's insane. And it's about to get even more insaner. Sir, I must protest. I am afraid you are no longer allowed to say such things. It's about to get even more insaner. Nope.
No.
That sounds like a Backstreet Boys lyric. You know that fucking song when they say something, a little more better. Girl, that's the way love goes. A little more better. That's the lyric.
No, I don't know that song.
Good. You're lucky.
I was always, I always lean more towards NSYNC, so.
Oh, well. Okay.
I never actually had any Backstreet Boys CDs, but I did have a couple NSYNC ones, so. Not that there was, I guess, a choice or a rivalry, but nothing about the Backstreet Boys ever really appealed to me. Sorry, Bridget. Just always more of an NSYNC girl.
Yeah, I never owned CDs from either one because I generally did not own CDs because I was a weird child.
It's really, really baffling to me whenever we talk about music and you're like, yeah, I've been to like 5 concerts. And I'm like, when? Like this year?
Girl, I've been to 4 concerts, probably. I don't even think I would have made it to 5 if we looked and counted. I don't think so.
Like, I understand that everybody has their interests, but music has always been like a really big constant in my life.
A unifier?
A what?
A unifier? Like in terms of other people relating to you about it, or...
No, just like it's always been important and a big part of my life. So I guess up until, I don't know, my adulthood, I just assumed everybody else was the same way about music. So when I meet people who are like, it's fine, I'm just like, but what? I don't understand the concept of, it's fine. It's music. Really? Okay. And when you said that you'd only been to like 4 concerts, it was a few years ago, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, that's all I did in high school was go to concerts.
Well, I didn't have any money, and
I
neither
didn't
did
either,
my
but
parents.
I'm old, and I was in my teens in the 90s when you could go see everybody for like less than $20. So, like, the most I ever paid, I think, was for the Beastie Boys, and that was like $25.
It's, and I didn't have a car, and I didn't really have friends with cars. And I did not have parents that were at all interested in chauffeuring me. Like, getting them to bring me to Walmart was kind of a battle.
Okay.
So, and most of my friends' parents were the same. Because I wasn't friends with the kids whose parents were, like, had a lot of free time. Their parents were like mine, and they came home from work and were immediately like, yeah, I'm done for the day. You can figure out your own shit. Which, honestly, that's exactly the kind of parent I would be also. So I'm not mad at them in any way at all for that.
Yeah, I do think, like, I was lucky enough to have friends who had parents who were willing to drive us to a lot of these shows.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't all that far, it was, just down by ASU or whatever. So just a few miles, but my dad wasn't interested in, like, chauffeuring me either.
Yeah. Man, I think all the time lately, because I have so many friends who are having kids, about, like, when I'm sitting and playing Animal Crossing and just doing that, because that's what I feel like doing right now. I keep thinking about the people out there who are very soon going to have to, like, decide whether or not they get to do this thing, like, or, do a thing to make their kids happy.
Jason's sister Jessica, who is a listener of this show, every once in a while will be like, oh, you should watch the show. And she's like, yeah, I don't have time. Mm-hmm. I have a kid, and basically when we're done with him for the day, we're like so tired, we just go to bed. Mm-hmm. And now she has 2. So I don't know if she's ever going to have time to watch TV again, and that just seems really sad to me. But those are the choices that you make, and the things I get it, but I can't imagine it.
I'm glad that somebody gets it, because I don't.
Like, I love my niece and nephew. Can't wait to meet my niece. She's brand new. And she's very, very fat and cute. But I know it drives Jess a little crazy that she has to watch Frozen like 1,500 times.
That's the kind of, like, it's small. And I'm sure that when you're a parent, there is a point at which you are like, this is what I signed up for, and I love my child, and I know this means a lot to them, and yada, yada, yada. And so it is easier than it is for me in the abstract to think about this. But I truly just, no, I can't even talk about it. I just get too agitated. I'm sorry.
I'm someone who loves to rewatch things. Like, I put on shows that I watch all the time because it's comforting to me. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I could be watching something new, but instead I'm going to watch Grey's Anatomy because that's where I feel I'm comfortable. I can do other things when it's on, but it relaxes me. It's a comfort blanket of a show. And so I get it, but I also know, like, kids programming can be real annoying. And I don't know how parents do it. How they can listen to the same songs over and over again in these high-pitched little child voices. Or really, like, not great songs, but they're very appealing to kids for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Like, music that is directed towards children it can be really annoying.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know why that is.
I mean, this is the one thing that I feel like I can still really remember about being a kid. And this is the primary thing that I think of when I really ask myself why I don't want any. I remember experimenting with my voice and with the noises that things made around the house. Because it was the first time I had heard these noises or heard myself scream. And I wanted to see how high-pitched I could scream to. I was just curious about it. And I therefore would just sort of begin to scream and then realize that I could get louder than that. I can get higher pitched than that. Wild. And
that's so
meanwhile,
true.
my poor mother is like bloodshot eyes reaching for a fucking bottle of ibuprofen, trying desperately to not murder me in my sleep. Just getting through the day. And I'm out here just like exercising my fucking vocal cords or taking things and like ramming them against another thing so that I can hear bong. And then I'm like, oh, cool noise. And then I immediately do it again because I want to hear the bong again.
It's true.
It's just, oh.
It's true. And kids like to do that when their parents aren't paying attention to them. Mm-hmm. So usually when you're trying to have a conversation with somebody who's a parent, that's when their kids are like, let me see how loud I can scream. God.
I've been doing this like daily check-in with a couple people on Discord who are patrons. And one of them has this little girl, and I know that she is not going to mind me saying this because she knows exactly what I'm talking about. She was describing to me how she had had cherries for a snack that day. And her daughter's response to this in the background was so baffling to me. Her daughter lets out this shriek of indignation and then is like, you can hear her yelling, "The cherries are for me! I like cherries better than you like them!" And then starts yelling about how she's going to go and get some now because she has to like prove that her mom doesn't get to have cherries. And I can't imagine living with somebody who I pay for the fucking food and they are telling me I don't get to have it because they like it better. Oh, yeah. No, kids, I don't think so. That's not how this is going to fucking work. And, you know, it's like, that's having a kid. She was unsurprised and just laughed it off. And meanwhile, on her behalf, I was like, your mother gets to eat she'll eat all those cherries.
My friend was telling me the other day that his brother-in-law and sister-in-law have, I guess it's his niece. I always have to remind myself that when you marry somebody and they have a niece or nephew, that becomes your niece or nephew.
Okay.
So his niece, he said, is just a nightmare. And the parents have two very different parenting styles that don't mesh. The mom lets the daughter do whatever she wants all the time. Mm-hmm. And the dad tries to rein her in and put some structure and like, no, you're 4. You don't get to tell us when you go to bed. We tell you when you go to bed. Mm-hmm. But in the end, he always ends up, like, he tries to bargain with her. Like, if I let you have ice cream, then we go and read this book, and then you go to bed. And my friend was like, it never works. You can't bargain with a kid and expect them to hold up their end of the bargain when you hold up yours first. Mm-hmm. And he's like, but I can't tell him how to raise his kid.
Yeah.
And instead, his kid is a nightmare who, you know, is too old. Actually, I think she's 6. She's too old to be, like, getting up in a restaurant and then running around the restaurant, like, making noise and screaming and doing whatever she wants. She just has she's not disciplined. Mm-hmm. And he's telling me this story, and I was just like, I would have to stop talking to my family. Like, I don't think I could handle it.
Yeah.
I really don't. And I don't know how parents do it. Like, these little humans who are constantly testing their limits to see what they can get away with is exacerbating to me. It's
exasperating.
Exasperating. Yes.
But it is exacerbating also.
Yes. It just, like, I know that I don't have the patience, and that's one of the many reasons I chose not to have kids. Mm-hmm. Because I would just be like, you need to go live somewhere else. You're too loud.
Oh, I love the idea
messy.
of telling your kid that they've got a week to pack their stuff.
Like, I have an employee who she's like, I'm going to have to, like, because she's going down to only working 1 day a week. And she's like, I'm going to have to, like, set up some sleepovers at your house so I can see you more. And I was like, no, you're too loud. I can't handle it in my house. I'm a quiet person. Mm-hmm. You are a very, very loud person, and I love you. But no, you're not allowed to come to my house. You would scare all the animals that live around here. My cats wouldn't know what to do.
Oh, my God. I love that so much. You would scare the animals.
There's like a chipmunk that lives outside. It would go move. It would live somewhere else. Be terrified. She's so loud. She's the loudest person I've ever known.
Guys,
and that's how I feel about kids. It's like, you're too loud.
Off topic real quick. But some of you may have noticed that my sound wasn't awesome last episode. And that was because my cat, who sucks, came into my office and wrenched some fucking wires and cables out of place because she was trying to attack some birds that were setting up a nest in my window. Those birds are gone. They have not come back, Jamie.
Oh.
And I am so fucking mad about it. This little bitch sneaks into my fucking room, gets all up in my fucking equipment, and then scares off these precious little mommy and daddy sparrow birdies. And I am so livid about it. Aww. Oh, I'm so angry.
I was so excited about those birds. I wanted to see if they had little eggs and stuff.
Yes. And no, they had this fucking horror of a cat throwing her fat body against the window in desperate attempts to break through, I guess. I don't know what she was trying to do. But
she either wanted to play with them or eat them.
I would see first one, then the other. Anyway, okay, so that's pretty much the episode.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that, because you said there was not really any good...
There wasn't really any trivia that... It wasn't... There was only a small amount of it, and it was not interesting. It wasn't anything worth talking about.
Okay.
And we don't have any new reviews. It's been quite a few weeks since we've had a new review. So if any of you have been like, oh, I've been meaning to do that, please do that.
Hint, hint. Now's the time, kids.
It makes us feel good, and also it helps people find the podcast.
Yes. Yeah, and, you know, if it doesn't make us feel good, we just won't read it. So, that's fine.
That's how I would handle it, but you like reading the bad reviews.
Honestly, I do. I find them very funny. There's occasionally ones where I'm like, oh, that was mean, but as John Mulaney would say, in an accurate way.
Right.
And so those ones, I'm like, oh, that hit a little too close to home. Maybe I'm not cool with that. But when people just get mad about basic shit, like, well, she doesn't like the show. And I'm just like, well, I mean, I'm still covering it. I've quit before. If I didn't, I would just quit. And or also, like,
welcome to media criticism. That's,
right. That's the point.
Yeah.
Nowhere does it say that this is like a fan show. This is just coverage of a thing. So, you know.
And you can critique, like, sometimes, yes, I know there is the case where there have been times where you're covering something you just don't like it. You still finish it, but you don't like it. Then there's criticism that comes from a place of, like, I love this thing, and I don't like this part of it.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's okay to have both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes that's the reason that I get so upset, is because I really like this thing. And they have done some shit that I feel very strongly about. Because I wouldn't feel strongly if I didn't like it to begin with. It wouldn't matter to me.
It's really exhausting to try to cover something, too, that you just don't like.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't find anything positive to say about something, then... I mean, that's why you stopped covering The Walking Dead. It's why I stopped watching The Walking Dead. I couldn't even handle, like, just watching it anymore.
What a nightmare that show turned out to be.
Yeah.
What a shame.
And that's, like, a prime example, but you've quit some other things or covered one season of something and then been like, nah, it's not fun to go back.
I'm looking at you, Empire.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Punisher.
Ooh, yeah,
like,
there goes one.
I fucking love the shit out of that first season, and I don't even want to watch the second season based on what Krista told me about it. Because she didn't like it so much, and if she couldn't handle it, I'm really not going to like it, because I can most often find something good in everything. So...
All right. Well, if we're going to wrap it up, then I guess we're going to wrap it up. Guys, Rashawn and I just recorded our first episode on Westworld Season 3. And
ooh, you did?
That is, yep. And we are going to be, by the time this comes out, that first episode will be up already. We are doing our Song of Ice and Fire fundraiser through the end of that. And then if we have reached it by then, we will be good and start Song of Ice and Fire. If not, we shall see.
Where is it at? Is it above 95 yet?
Well, here's the thing, and I've said this before.
Beginning of the month.
It's the beginning of the month, and people don't update their payment information or their bank accounts are drained, and so it dropped back down again. So it had been at 95. That was the high the last time that I checked. And then when I checked a couple days ago, and I'll check now just to, be sure, but it was at 92, I think. Back up to 95.
Cool.
So, yeah. So we only have 5% and we've got, about 2 months to get there. So I'm hopeful.
Well, I know that we have some new listeners to this show. And if you guys are enjoying this show and are curious about any of the shows that Natasha has covered that are patrons only, and there's a lot of them, it would be beneficial to all of us for you to become patrons. And then we'll get a Song of Ice and Fire, which is really going to be everything. I want it so bad.
I hope it's going to be everything. We'll see. It's like I'm just getting more and more nervous the more I talk about it. Like, I hope when I revisit it that I don't fucking hate it. I don't think I will be in that place, but I just get sort of like worried about it lately. You know what I mean?
Nah, the books are so good, and I've reread them a lot. They're so much better than the show, and if you can just put aside everything from the show and just focus on the books, I think you guys are going to really enjoy talking about it.
Well, guys, I guess we'll only find out if you chip in, so do that.
Chip in, chip in, chip in.
It sounded a little bit like you were saying chicken.
Maybe they are chicken. They're scared.
You fucks. Yeah, so do that. Become patrons if if you're interested in listening to the Unsober episodes that I do with Rashawn. Those are twice a month, and the one that we just covered was on the ocean, and the one that's going to be coming up next week is on self-care, because all of us could use a bit of guidance on that at the moment, I think.
True.
And it's just about like an hour and a half to 2 hours of her and me shooting the shit about a random topic. And oftentimes, before we even start, because we do them live so you can be in the audience if you can make it, oftentimes beforehand we will have a little chat that doesn't make it onto the show. And this past one, Rashawn told us about the ex of hers who lived in the hallway of the apartment rather than in the room with her. He had a mattress that he put in the hallway when they broke up.
I miss all her good stories.
It is really something. This man was bringing women home with him who agreed to fuck him in his hall mattress. And I don't understand how you don't see that mattress laying in the fucking hallway and turn your ass around and walk the fuck home. I don't get it. But evidently... So yeah.
Those poor girls and their low self-esteem.
The standards just, guys, we gotta raise them. We gots to. Although, I don't know, maybe it had been a really long time since they'd gotten some dick and they were just like, fine. Look, maybe he was really fine. I don't know. Maybe he was super hot. Lord knows I have put up with some shit from men that it was just because they were pretty.
It could be Chris fucking Evans. It could be Ben Barnes, and I'm not fucking him in the hallway of an apartment complex on a mattress that has been laying there because he moved it out there when he broke up with his girlfriend. Not doing it.
Oh, guys, I just found it so, and so this is the kind of thing. If you are wanting more content, if you want some stuff that Rashawn probably wouldn't say on a free show because, she has a job and tries to be a professional. Yeah. She will say shit behind that paywall that she would not otherwise say. I, on the other hand, will say whatever I feel like anywhere because I don't have those kinds of restrictions. So it's fine. Except for maybe Owen's family finding this podcast, in which case that's their problem.
You made your choices.
Yeah. I had one of his aunts texted me asking what the name of my show was again. And I just never replied. And she texted Owen later and asked the same thing. And he never replied either.
Yeah, when my coworkers are like, oh, you do a podcast? What's it called? And I'm like,
It's called Mind Your Business.
I'm real torn about what to do when they ask.
This is not for you, friends.
How about we just leave it at I do a podcast?
Yep. I wholeheartedly agree. If I worked with people there's no way. I want to be able to bag on the people I work with on my show too. If I were in a job where I had some really suspect coworkers. Yeah. I need to be able to say some shit, I
used to when Chris and I first started Lost because I had not even been promoted to shift supervisor yet. Once I got promoted to a position that was a little more important, I had to stop because I didn't want to get in trouble. And now I certainly could never say anything. I don't have a lot to say negative about my job in general, but I wouldn't talk shit about my coworkers.
Yeah.
Because there's serious ramifications if I do that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, I've lost a job because of shit talking on my social media. So
it's true. You learned the hard way.
That is why I don't have a real job anymore. I like doing this because I can talk as much shit as I feel like, and it's great. Mm-hmm. Why did you become self-employed? I like talking shit, and I wanted to keep doing that. That was my main priority. All right, guys. Thank you all again so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
was an Unspoiled Network podcast.